Hi, welcome to this video on how did the sailing event sustainability plan go. So if you were listening to the last video, we went through a event sustainability plan I put together for a sailing event at our local club, and the racing was it was an RS fleet. So if you're familiar with dinghies, you might have heard of the RS manufacturer, and there's three fleets and with about 32 boats. So this was the first time I've ever done or pulled together a plan like this and actually implemented at an event. I'm normally on the other side of event organisation. I'm normally a sailor participating and competing, but this time I've really enjoyed the organisation of an event. Now, my main role was event safety lead, so sustainability was definitely not my priority at this event, but it definitely gave me the opportunity to implement things and kind of try things out and see how they went. So this is what this video is about. So how did it go? Now, why do we want to do a survey? So I've basically implemented the plan and then I've asked the competitors what they thought about the plan and how they got involved and sought their opinions on different things. And like I said, so there's 32 boats in this event, so not the biggest event. It's a national event in Ireland, and it was a good turnout for the fleet in question, but there's obviously going to be bigger events um, uh, around the world, I suppose, and this is a great case study. Just to not that it's not important, but I suppose to try a great opportunity to trial things. So in terms of the survey, we will look at why it's so important to get this feedback at the very end. But for now, let's go through some of the questions I asked and the responses. So the first question I asked was, were you made aware that sustainability was a focus of the event? And thankfully, a lot of people said yes. There's a couple of things on this about, so I published it on the event notice board. We had a WhatsApp group for the event. It was mentioned briefly at briefings between for sailors, and I asked whether people had heard about it word of mouth. So a lot of people had said yes. There was 8 people that said no, they hadn't, and I suspect it is well, they just purely missed the message. But how could we do better here? I think the WhatsApp group was very useful for organising an event in terms of announcements, and I had put in a message, I suppose, early on at the start of the week on the Monday before the event, and there had been people still joining the WhatsApp group, and I never got around to updating that message. So if they joined later in the week, they had missed the memo basically. So I suppose being more strategic about when you place a message, and again, I definitely will use that WhatsApp group again for sharing messages like that. The next question was, how would you rate your overall awareness of the environmental impact of sailing events like this one? So yeah, most people were very aware or somewhat aware, which is great. There was a few that aren't aware, which is absolutely fine as well. I think the important thing is, even though this is a positive response, I don't think it merits not trying to drive sustainability. I think it's always good to remind people, and also remind people of what your club or what is important to your club, or maybe you have different procedures and logistics and bins or whatever else. So make sure you inform the competitors and visitors how you want them to operate basically. So although it's a great response, I think we still need to do our bit and make sure we instruct people and advise people what to do. Next question then was about biosecurity, and I asked if the competitor is aware of these measures and how to prevent the spread of non-native species. So this was part of the message we had sent out on the Monday before the event, asking people to clean boats before they left to travel to our club and make sure they're dry as well. And we also ask people to check their boats for, or launching trolleys as well, for mud, seaweed, anything they're bringing off from our club and bringing back to their club. So yes, in my opinion, dinghy racing is quite low risk in terms of non-native species. Now there is a risk because you're traveling and there is opportunity for things to travel about, but generally if you've been at a dinghy racing event, most competitors keep their boats very clean. No one wants seaweed hanging off their boat, or it's the complete opposite to maybe a boat that's stored in the water for a long time and heavily biofouled, or shipping, traveling with ballast water and all that sort of thing. So I think in terms of water sports, dinghy racing is quite low risk, but I think it's good that we do implement good practice like this to completely eliminate that risk as well. The next question there was, do you take any steps to follow biosecurity guidelines during the event? And thankfully, yes. The answer was mostly yes. I suspect the people saying no did, in a way, cleaning their boat down after use, for example, even to get the salt water off. And perhaps if they had a bit of seaweed lying on the launching trolley, taking that off. So even if so yeah, I think people maybe just aren't aware of what they need to do. That's the issue there. So yeah, that's biosecurity. Were you aware of recycling stations or guidance on waste disposal at the venue? And thankfully this work had been done prior to the event. We had a lot of bins for different waste in the club. And clearly labelled as well, and situated around the premises as well. So we had a lot of people respond positively to that one. And did they make use of recycling facilities actively? Yes, 14, and there were some occasionally. And I suspect maybe it's just they are just not in the habit, or maybe they weren't near the bins. I can't think of where they would be, because I thought we had good coverage of the club. But anyway, yeah, that's the recycling facilities. We also had a water refill tap on site, and a lot of people used it, and they had brought their own water bottles as well. So it's not surprising in my view for this fleet, because a lot of people would have their water bottles to fit in a certain area of the boat, or maybe they have a holder on the boat. So it's good that they they have their own water bottles, but it was good to point out to them clearly this tap was located at the top of the slipway. So it's good to just point out clearly where that tap is and where they can use it, just to encourage use. So that's the end of the closed questions, and the survey didn't end there. There was 2 open questions, which are always my favourite. You get some great and crazy ideas, and also very useful just to see what people think and kind of what their level of understanding is as well. So we'll look at some of the responses here. And the first one was, what could sailing clubs that host events do better to support environmental sustainability? So I'll not go through all these responses here, but there was some interesting ones, like supplying locally sourced plant-based food. Now this brings in the argument of a vegan diet, which I do not want to bring up at a sailing event. I suspect maybe in the future that might change, but for now we wanted to just support local, which we did. And we catered for everyone as well, so we did have vegetarian options as well. So yeah, one to keep in mind. The circulation of green instructions, I suppose I mentioned that at the start about being more strategic about making people aware, which I think we could have done better. The next one there was remote controlled marks. So if you're not familiar with a racing event, they use normally large marks that the sailors can see on the water, and that will set out their course. And this is normally set up by a number of motorboats called ribs, and they tow the marks about with the anchor and lay them, and then if the wind shifts they have to move the course and all this. So There is this technology of remote controlled marks being floated about. Now, I don't think we have the budget at our club for this, but it's definitely a cool idea, and I'm sure it would take the stress off volunteers driving the mark boats. The next one there is about electrification of engines. Certainly, I think in the future we will see that more often, and for example, all the club boats we have are all petrol engines outboards. We're just working with what we have really. But I would say in the future, when it comes to potentially upgrading vessels and their engines, I wouldn't be surprised if there was more electric outboards being used. Awareness in advance about the refill station and using single-use plastics. I think that's what it's a good one, because it is about reminding people, although people said they're aware. If you get a message on the run up to an event, then perhaps you'd be more likely to implement something, or just be more mindful of these sorts of things. So yes, I think awareness in advance is definitely important. So yeah, it's trying to reach everyone, so the folks in the WhatsApp community, but just trying to get the message out to everyone. So yeah, the next one there is idling of engines. I suppose I was on a rescue boat for weekends. Do we introduce a no idling procedure? So if you're sitting just watching for racing, we would normally turn the engine off. It's nice and quiet, saves fuel, but not everyone does it, so maybe there's merit there for a policy there, or a procedure. And the one I liked here was a clause to the notice of race about the sustainability plan. So I really like that idea, and that kind of comes with kind of forces you to get prepared well in advance to the event, whereas I kind of did everything the week off the event, so lastminute.com. Whereas if you did that, you'd be definitely more prepared. So the last question was just about any other comments or observations anyone had about sustainability at this event, and I suppose there was a couple of things about the site being well organised and tidy. I think that's a good start to being sustainable, in terms of not letting litter escape the place, or people materials degrading and running into the ocean or whatever. So it's a real good place to start. There's a note on briefing to sailors. Again, I think just getting the message in and all the ways to communicate with sailors, I think is a good idea. EV charging facilities, definitely something that could be looked into for anyone driving an electric car. Yeah, but it's something that we could maybe look to implement in the future. And lastly, there was a note to say it's the first time they've seen it actively practiced. So I'll come on to that in a second, but that was a real nice message to get. So what did I learn from this event and the plan we put in place? I suppose the first one was, there's an image of me on a rescue boat for during the event, and I had many roles. So I was looking after the safety aspect, which was, I suppose, my main role and a very important one. So at the start of the plan we had put in place, we had set about dedicating roles. So ideally, in the next time, I'd maybe try and find someone, to make sure no one was overwhelmed and only had one role, and it would just make things a lot easier for organising things. So I was saying about like getting the plan ready for the notice of race, which comes out a good while before the event, so maybe having more time to do that as well. So yeah, maybe looking at dedicating someone to look after this aspect of things. Definitely more awareness of the initiatives prior to the event, which came back in the feedback. So try and include it in more briefings and that sort of thing, and then the notice of race, like I mentioned. The image there in the middle is of continuous improvement. So the idea that we planned, so we did that, and we did the event, it ran successfully. Then what we have done now is we've looked back and reviewed it, and I've asked competitors for the ideas, and I've given my own thoughts and opinions on it as well. And the next step would be then to act on it. So what I'm going to do is update the event plan and share it. So for the next event, we have we're improving basically. So that's the idea behind that image. And that is the end of this video. One thing I hope that came from this is by even just bringing this topic into the eye line of sailors from different clubs, we have kind of created a ripple effect. So they will bring ideas back to their club, and if they have an event later this year or in the future, they can pick up some tips and basically copy us. Like, there's no reason why they can't, and put a plan together and try and push it out as well. So that's what I hope will happen from this. Even though it may be small, it'll just start that wee ripple. So yeah, very happy with how the event went. The next video I'm going to do is about environmental risk assessment. So similar idea to a safety risk assessment, but I pulled one together for this event, so we'll go through the steps of that and how it links to the plan as well. So thank you very much for listening, and I will catch you soon.